Well, hello everybody. I make it 4 o'clock. I'm a little off center, but that's kind of the way life is these days. Aren't we all a little off center? So, hi. Welcome to one of my regularly scheduled lives, and we're chatting about many things, I hope. Hello, everyone's checking in. This is very exciting. What was I going to say? Oh yes, it's Saturday, it's 4 o'clock, it's time for tea, we're gonna gossip, and you're gonna ask me tons of exciting questions, I hope. Hello, hello, welcome to the madness. Let's see, I'm drinking tea. It's a little late for me to have tea. It's lovely to see you all. I'm drinking Thai tea this afternoon rather than my usual strong English because it's just a little bit late for the really strong caffeinated stuff. So I switched to something a little lighter. Hello. As always, if you want to tell me where you're coming in from, I love to know where everyone is located all over the globe. It makes me so excited. And frankly, it is the reason I do these. I do these lives hopefully so that I can reach people who I don't normally reach all over the world. So hopefully you'll let me know. I'm a little tired and a little out of it, so please excuse me if I'm not as on the ball as well. Am I ever on the ball? So I have a couple of agenda items to chat about first. The first thing is Competence is out, everybody. Woo, there, how's that? Competence, there she is. This is the UK version. This is also the version that we're trying to get to Australia. Australia seems to be having a problem getting it. It is POD, it's print on demand to Australia. So if you are in Australia, which probably most of you aren't, but maybe, you need to go in, and if you want your local bookstore to get it, specifically ask them to get it for you. That's pretty much the only way they'll get it. And there seem to be some kinks, but we're trying to work it out. This is what the US version looks like. This is the hardcover. Ooh, hardcover. So those are the two that are out in the world. They should be mostly out in the world everywhere. For those of you who keep track of the Chirp or read my newsletter or have been following on the fan group, there has been some difficulty getting the audiobook overseas outside of the United States and Canada. That's my bad. I made that mistake. And I'm still trying to figure out what to do about that. So, sorry. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. It's lovely to see everyone saying hello. And for those of you who are tuning in later, hi. Welcome to the madness. Those of you on YouTube, hello. And let's get started. So I had a early prequel, I guess, question come in. And I thought I would start with that question. And it was about Crudrat. So here is one of the sacred actual books of Crudrat. Crudrat was a kickstarted full cast audiobook, and this was one of the higher backers. So these only exist in a very limited run for that Kickstarter for the backers. So for those of you who have never heard of this book, this is my young adult sci-fi book. And it only exists in full cast audio version, or it exists for a few people in the hardcover if you happen to have backed the Kickstarter. So one of the questions I got was, where is the second book in this series? There are supposed to be two. It's supposed to be a duology. I haven't written the second book, but I have an outline for it. I will eventually write it, I promise. The sci-fi universe is called the Tinkered Stars universe, and there is another book coming out in this universe next spring. But it's under the Gail Carriger, just to confuse matters because it's super sexy. But it is set on a space station, and it is a sci-fi, and it's in the same universe, and it shares some of the alien cultures, although not any of the ones specifically dealt with in this book. So I hope that answers the Crudrat question. It's probably not the answer you wanted. It is a very complicated voice for me to get in and out of, and so I really just need a bunch of time in my schedule cleared in order to reread this book, re-edit it, and then write the second one, and that's just why it's taken me so long to get back to it. So, yes. Hello from South Wales, my goodness! Yay! Hi everyone! So I'm hoping you're thinking up some fun questions for me, and I hope that answered your Red question. The other thing that's going on right now is I am signing the last of the Tiptons. So for those of you not in the know, Soulless, my first book, the book that I'm pretty much known for, is getting a special re-release in September of the illustrated, and it's getting an illustrated re-release. So it's going to be hardcover. It has an illustrated cover, and it has 10 illustrations inside it, little illustrations for the chapter headings and stuff like that. It's really cute. Very excited about it. The illustrations are kind of Edward Gorey-ish, and I am signing the book. So, and by that I mean I am signing all 10,000 of the first print run, which means I have signed 10,000 pieces of paper. Because what they do is they don't send me 10,000 books, because that would be a little ridiculous. They send me the piece of paper that gets slotted into the book before the book actually goes to printing, and those are called Tiptons. So I have been slowly working my way through 10,000 Tiptons. Let me tell you, that's a lot of signatures. So a Tipton looks like this. So there's my signature on a Tipton. So I've signed 10,000 of those, and they're going back to the printer now, and they will all be slotted into the first print run of that Soulless Illustrated Edition, which means, yes, me, I actually signed them all. But only for that first print run. If they sell out of those 10,000 and then they have to do another print run, I'm not signing those. So if you really want a signed version, you need to pre-order it or get on that relatively quickly in order to get the signed ones. I can't personally guarantee that it'll be signed. All I know is I've signed those 10,000. So if you're getting it from a weird vendor like Book Depository, I hope it's signed. I can't guarantee anything. The only way I can guarantee you get a signed edition is if you order it from Borderlands. So, and the way I do that is I physically go into the store and make sure everything is signed properly. But I can guarantee that 10,000 of that first print run are signed. So, and if you order it from like normal first run distributors like Barnes & Noble and Amazon, it should be signed. Please, please be signed. My hands are getting sore. Yes, it does. It is. One of the reasons it took me a while to do it is I can only do about 4 to 5 hours of signing a day, and that's with like taking some breaks and stretching my wrists, and then stopping and then taking the weekend off and like resting everything. So that's why it takes so long to sign that many Tiptons. So those were the like bits of business that I wanted to make sure I told you guys, but it looks like I'm already starting to get some questions in. So so here's the thing with the questions. Ooh, sorry. I only see like 1 or 2 questions at a time, and I also see all the rest of the comments, so I might miss your question. So I'll try and answer everyone's question, and then if I miss it in the live, I'll go back and double check the feed, and if you leave a YouTube comment, I'll go and I'll double check the comments and like make sure I follow up, like typing back to you within the next couple of days. So don't worry. But I will try and get everybody's questions, and it looks like we have our first one here from Andrew, who's writing a steampunk novella and wants to know how I avoid writing 2D characters. Well, for me, at least, I'm kind of a bit of a, I don't know, maybe it's a kind of mental illness, but the characters really do live alive in my brain for me. And I actually usually find if a character is coming off pat or 2D, or the voice of that character seems really muddled, it's just that I don't know them well enough. So there are kind of tricks that I use for getting to know my characters better. I give them quizzes. I like give them like Cosmo magazine style quizzes or online quizzes. Like I could, you could sort them into Harry Potter houses, or you could give them the Young-Briggs test or something like that to see, to try and access the depth of that character a little better. Those are some of the tricks I use. But generally speaking, if I find a character's not working for me, that's not the right point of view character, I probably need to switch to a different character. I'm doing something wrong in that regard. Or I don't know that character well enough, so I need to go like mentally sit down to tea with that character and talk to them closer in order to figure out. Also for me, dialogue is really, really important. So I will put characters into conversation with each other, and that might never actually end up in a book or end up on the printed page, but it really helps me access them because I love dialogue so much. So I find it's the easiest thing for me to write. So that's the other thing I would suggest, is if you do something like easily and comfortably as a writer, you can access them that way. You could try writing in first person for a little while, see if that helps you get a handle on them, then switch back to third. All right, other questions? Deborah wants to know if I'm going to continue the special edition book. I think I don't exactly know what you mean. If you mean the green hardcover edition of Soulless, the limited edition that came out, that's not illustrated, that came out from Subterranean a couple of years ago. Subterranean has no plans to do any more in that series, but I am building a relationship with them where I will probably have other books with them that are produced in that style. If you're asking about the illustrated edition, if there will be more illustrated editions of my books, that will be dependent on sales of this book, because it's my traditional house, and basically if they make enough money, they'll keep doing it, and if they don't, they won't, because that's how the publishing industry works. I have a question, how many I get through. So how many tip-ins can I sign in an hour? I can sign 120 in 1 hour, about. So you can do the math on that. Rebecca wants to know about the inspiration for Tasherit Sekhmet. There's a lot of I think she's a very romanticized ideal for me, like as a person or as a lover. I love the idea of a cat shifter, so that was part of it. I love the idea of writing someone who expresses affection in that kind of weird way that cats have of expressing this sort of I love you but I'm not going to really tell you kind of way. So that part was really fun for me to write, an interaction. Yeah, and I wanted a love interest who was very old and kind of quirky so cat quirky, but also kind of ancient in the way that Lord Akaldama is ancient, but not quirky in the same way that Lord Akaldama is quirky. So I kind of wrote her almost as she's kind of a foil for him in a way. Yeah, so those were some of the inspirations for her. I also recognize that Primrose is difficult. Like she has a very specific kind of personality, and I wanted her to have a love interest who matched that personality and could also be tolerant of it and find it endearing, could find Primrose's kind of need to control things and need to organize things as something that is an object of affection. And I think I explore that a lot in my books in general, is turning characters' own traits that they might perceive about themselves that are negative traits into something that their partner or eventual partner really admires. And that's really fun as an author to write. It's kind of seeing not only the good in the other person, but also finding affection in the flaw, in their own perceived flaws. Hello from Glasgow. What are some of my style inspirations? You mean for clothing? I really love Dita, obviously. I mean, I don't look like her, so I can't imitate her. Dita Von Teese, I can't imitate her style exactly. But yeah, I would consider her definitely an inspiration. I think I take a lot of inspiration from my wardrobe from just sort of classic advertisements and stuff from the 1950s, not necessarily from any one screen siren or anything like that, but yeah, just vintage. I'm just inspired in general by vintage. I used to follow a bunch of vintage bloggers, but frankly, a lot of them have fallen off lately, so not too many anymore. Ty wants to know if we get more of Tasherit's backstory. I was vague with it. Yes, I was. Yes, you will get some very key, a single point of very key insight into her backstory in the last Custard Protocol book, and hopefully that'll be pretty satisfying. Not entirely. I'm not gonna beat you over the head with answers. I like to leave some things a little bit mysterious. And you'll notice, like with Lord Akaldama, that with the Immortals, I tend to leave things even more vague than with some of the other characters, because there's so much historical scope. It would take a lot to delve into all of that. And maybe I'm leaving that option open for myself. So, oh, this is actually, someone is complimenting my little top. It's actually a dress. You can't really see, but yeah, it's a little day dress I just picked up at a little thrift store nearby. I'm very excited about. It's very lightweight. Of course, it's white, so I'm immediately gonna stain it. But someone say that it's lovely to meet me in Denver. It was lovely to meet everybody in Denver. I was delighted. So for those who haven't been following my trials and tribulations, I was in Denver recently. Ooh, I'm forgetting about my tea. And I was there for RWA, which is the romance writers, and it was my first big romance writer author convention thing. So it's very different. I'm used to science fiction and fantasy conventions, so it was all around quite interesting. But it was I was very excited whenever somebody came up to me, particularly at RWA, to say that they read my stuff, because I don't know how much crossover I have readership-wise between the romance reader world and the sci-fi fantasy reader world. So I got very excited when someone was both. Sarah wants to know if I'm going to the Retro Hugos and what outfit I have planned. The Retro Hugos are on Thursday, next Thursday, at the at Worldcon, the World National Convention for Science Fiction and Fantasy, which is in San Jose, which is local. And the Retro Hugos are kind of posthumous Hugo Award thingies. I usually don't go to the Retro Hugos. To be honest, you guys, I rarely go to any kind of awards shows. I find them really boring. So don't tell anybody. I like to dress up for them and then not go to them, but hang out at the bar and watch people complaining about them on Twitter and chat to friends. So I don't go to the Retro Hugos, and I don't really go to the regular Hugos either. And I didn't go to the Ritas at RWA. I know. I just don't like sitting in a chair and watching people walk across stages. So, yeah, but I will definitely have cute outfits. You'll have to wait and see what I wear at Worldcon. But because it is local, I'm wearing so many different outfits, and I have so many different pairs of shoes because I can bring them all. I don't have to worry about packing for a change. Jeremy wants to know if Rue is going to cause something. Oh, Jeremy. I cannot answer that question for contractual reasons. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Okay, good. I'm glad we got that cleared up. The How to Marry thing. Book is asking about How to Marry, which is currently on sale, but probably not for much longer. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. One author versus Amazon is pretty impossible. So it's just going to run its course, which means it'll run through the end of August. And, I just hope I pick up some new readers from it, if nothing else. That's kind of where I am. You got to take your knocks when you're dealing with Amazon. They're going to whack you upside of the head when you least expect it. Rebecca wants to know if Percy ever gets a love interest. Oh, yes, he does. Percy gets his love interest in the last book. So the final book, which is Reticence, which comes out next year, is Percy's point of view and Percy's possible, maybe probable love interest's point of view. So you get a new character introduced who takes on the secondary point of view, or the back is a swap point of view. So it's pretty 50-50 in the final book. And then you get Percy some more, because I love to write Percy's internal weird Latin, what is his brain doing? Like, it makes me so happy to write Percy. So yeah, so that'll be the final book in the Custard Protocol series. And yes, don't you worry about Percy. Percy will be fine. Natalie wants to know about the Fingerlingtons in the Parasolverse. Well, if you go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, there's a Parasol Protectorate Wikia. And if you look up the Fingerlingtons, you will know how everybody interconnects. But you will also find out more about that in the last book as well. So don't worry. Amber wants to know if I learned anything shiny or new or tarnished but new in this latest round of publishing. I think you mean in terms of like competence or how to marry, or It was a lot harder. So for those who are not aware, and it's background minor information, but I did not sell Competence to my UK publisher. So the first two books in the Custard Protocol series, Prudence and Imprudence, sold to my UK publisher. But when the time came to renegotiate that contract, I broke with the publisher for various reasons, and decided to try to publish it myself to the UK and any associated external territories. And that was a lot harder than I had anticipated. So that has been a lot of where the kinks have been coming in with this book, is getting it out. Like, it was pretty seamless getting the novellas out, but restricting territories and like not allowing it into some and other, it's just been really complicated. And that kind of took up more time than I would have liked. So, I don't know if that means I won't do it again, or if maybe they'll clean things up and it'll become easier to do going forward, but it certainly was a challenge. I think my inclination would be to, if I do that again, if I hold on to the rights to foreign territories myself and then publish it to those territories myself, I think my inclination is to do that from the get-go with my next series, rather than attempt to halfway through was it's been a beast. Something from Katie. Deborah has specified the other. Okay, so I think I got the answer to that question. Oh, Casey, you're so sweet. So Casey wants to know, says that is a little disappointed to hear that the year in publishing hasn't been best. And I was pretty honest with the Cheer Up recently. That's the newsletter for anybody who's confused about what this Cheer Up thing is that Gail's nattering on about. This hasn't been a great financial year for me. So it's a good thing I cut back on travel this year, frankly. And honestly, that's mostly because I had to sign all of these tip-ins, and it just delayed my deadline. So under ordinary circumstances, I turn in a book in the middle of the year in July. I turn in a traditional book, and that's the book that you guys will get the next year. And that means I get paid. But if I don't turn in that book, I don't get paid. And so, but I couldn't turn in this book because I had to stop because I had to sign the tip-ins, and then a whole bunch of other stuff happened. So it's just really delayed. And it just means that, like, most authors are like this. We get paid in chunks of money throughout the year. We don't earn a salary. And so you have to bank on kind of leaner times of the year. And I just didn't bank on this. I'm usually so good at making my deadlines. I just got derailed by other things. So that's why it's been a bit lean for me. I'll be okay. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Please don't worry. But it does mean I'm limiting some of my travel and stuff like that. That I do at my own expense because I just don't have that much money to work with at the moment. Don't worry, I'll still be writing. And that's really the key, is I just have to freaking make my deadlines and get it done and figure it all out. So, yeah, but thank you so much for asking. That's really sweet of you guys. The best way to support an author, any author, is, buy and read our stuff. Request the book from the library. The libraries also have to buy it from us. So, like, just the act of requesting a book from a library really helps out authors. What else? And reviewing. Reviewing is, honestly, it's the nicest thing you can do, is just write a review on Goodreads or Amazon or wherever you want to write a review. Even if it's not like a 5-star, I love this more than anything review. Any review is helpful. So that's the best thing you guys can do, and it's really great when you do it, and I notice and I appreciate it. I don't read my reviews, but I do notice the new ones that pop up, and I get very excited to see them there. So thank you very, very much. Samantha wants to know if there's a special website for Borderlands in order to get the book. Yes, it's really, I've made it as simple as I possibly can. So if you go to my website and you go to the book that you want, and there is an actual page on my website under the Parasol Protectorate for the Soulless Illustrated Edition or any other book, and you'll see, you click on the book comes up. At the bottom underneath it are a bunch of buttons to buy it, so you can order it on Amazon or whatever, and there's a big button that's labeled Signed. If you press on that button, it will pop up an email, and you just send the email to Borderlands. make sure you put in your correct email address, because Borderlands will email you back and say, okay, did you want it dedicated? Do you want Gail to inscribe it with anything specific? But it seems to be working pretty well and pretty seamlessly. So go to my website, go to the book in question that you want signed, press that signed button and fill in the information. And hopefully that will work for you. If that is not something you want to do, if you don't want to email, you can go to Borderlands Books, just Google it, and their website will pop up. You can email them directly through their website, or you can actually phone them. They have a toll-free telephone number. You can just call them and order the book that way. They're really good at person-to-person contact and relations. They'll ship it wherever you want it. They make sure that they get everything right for you. And they're super, super nice about it. That's why I work with them, because they have a history of doing a really good job with this kind of thing. So hopefully that makes it as easy as I could figure out how to make it. Mandy wants to know if Akeldama and Tasherit will ever meet. That's all I'm going to say about that. There were lots of comments saying thank you for doing the live chat, and I love these things, you guys. I have so much fun with them. So, yes. Oh, Katie's so cute. Says Primrose reminds her of when she was 16 and questioning herself, and first crushes and stuff. Yes, Prim is a little bit of a late bloomer, but then, you know, she does have all of society against her, so to speak. So... Sally is saying, Sally, incidentally, for anybody, knows all. She's wise in the ways of Gail. And she says, she's reminding you all they have a link on the website. I will also put a link into the notes for this to specifically for the illustrated edition to make sure you get a signed one. Hello from Australia. Oh, there is someone from Australia. Hooray! We were just talking about you. And from Switzerland, Pamela's curious about the metamorphosis process. So a word really quickly on the way the science of my universe works, specifically the Parasolverse, in terms of metanaturals, excess souls, surviving the bite, that kind of thing. I do have it all scientifically, according to the rules of the universe, all worked out. And I have a grid with sort of crazy... chemical formulas and stuff. And someday, I promise, it will go up on the Wikia or I will post it, but all of the secrets that pertain to the discovery of how the world works have to be revealed in the books first, and then I'll post it for you. So it will happen eventually. But part of the grander arc of the whole universe is the characters inside that universe figuring this out, figuring out the science of why someone is soulless, and and so and there's going to be a very big reveal at the end of Reticence, the final book of the Custard Protocol series, and that will tie very significantly into how metamorphosis works and how all of the transfer of abilities or lack of abilities works. So that is happening for you. And I think at that juncture, it'll be okay for me to, I'll wait until it's not a spoiler anymore, and then it'll be okay for me to, post the diagrammic, Gail figures out how her own universe works. So it does exist. I don't mean to, tempt you, but it does exist, and I will eventually put it out for you all, or stick it in the back matter of one of the books or something, so you will finally know. Robert wants to know what my favorite and or easiest book to write was. Oofga. You know what? So up until recently, I would have said this one. And just because was my super fluffy, I'm just going to have as much fun as humanly possible book. But also it's set in modern day Bay Area. So I never had to stop and do research. Yay! So that's why it's so easy. I will say this one was real fast too. I wrote this in 2 weeks or something. I mean, then I had to edit it and do all that other work, but I do have a book coming out in spring of next year, which is a sci-fi, which is in this universe, which is in the Crudrat universe, that was so fast and so fun to write and is so ridiculous. So that is currently the winner for my favorite and easiest book. I'm just scrolling through and looking for more questions. Somebody's talking about Deborah's talking about an event in steampunk in Maine. Yeah. See the reverse comment I just had about having a lean year and needing to cut back on travel. So. H wants to know, via Ty, whether Tash and Prim are going to be even gayer in the next book. We'll see. So Natalie says Alexia's mom met her dad in Egypt in the past, and partly due to her fear of the supernatural. So why is she accepting? Well, she wasn't very accepting of Lord Makar entering the family, at least initially. Mrs. Loontwill we're discussing. But I think she comes around to it because he has money and status. And she also, Natalie, I say she, would also like to know what fate has befallen Felicity. So there's a little mention of Felicity, or there's a sideline mention of Felicity, and actually in Reticence you'll get to see a little bit of Alexia's family. So for those of you who've made it to the end of Competence for obvious reasons. Book would like to know, does Tasha's backstory have a specific historical personality like Lord Akldama and Countess Nadasti? Ah, good question. In other words, does Tash have a secret historical identity? No. However, she and Lord Akldama have a connection over another secret historical identity who has been alluded to in the past. Maria says she's loving Competence. Yay. If allowed, could you answer for me, what are the differences between the werewolves? Dun, dun, dun. So this is a question about the San Andreas Shifter books. So there are differences between the werewolves as depicted in these books due to supersaturation. So we talk about supersaturation in these books and the way quintessence behaves. And it is quintessence in these books, not aether. And yes, so because of the way the science works in the universe, the act of exploding the aetherosphere and causing supersaturation means that the supernatural has different longevity effects when ether is in constant contact and percolated throughout the universe. So everything is different. Including the length. So you'll learn as the series progresses that there are long-lived werewolves, and there are werewolves from before World War I, from before supersaturation. But it's pretty clear they're not as long-lived. So that's sort of an answer to your question, but the longer answer is read on. The second one is coming out, so you'll find out a little bit more. And then the third one in that series is going to be Judd's book, and Judd is the oldest of the San Andreas pack, so he knows the most about what things were like. And we get to know about other species in the past. Yes, you'll learn more about the different species in the San Andreas world, the different shifters. Oh, Dick says he would love to be at my talk with Shelley next week. I actually was just at a meeting this morning with Shelley, and we were discussing what we're going to talk about. So Shelley, Adina, and I are going to be talking at Worldcon, just tea and writing strong women in steampunk, and I think it's going to be really fun. It's on Thursday, so for those of you who are coming to Worldcon who might be there a little bit early, we're one of the first panels, but I think it's because we're both local and we're both going to be there, and they know that we're both pretty comfortable in front of crowds, so they can just kind of leave us to get on with it. I think it's going to be a really fun conversation. If I had the capacity for the technology, I would just live stream it, but unfortunately I'm not that good, and the acoustics probably aren't great, and I can tell you the internet's going to be terrible inside the convention center. But maybe sometime I'll have her on here and we'll do a split screen interview. That would be really fun. Shelley, incidentally, for those of you who don't know, is a friend of mine, both in the steampunk world and outside of it. She's also my proof editor. So specifically for the Parasolverse novellas, she does some of the editing for me. She's an amazing, meticulous editor for historicals. And so I use her for that. She's great. And an awesome author. Pamela wants to know if there's going to be another generation of Parasol books with Spoo's point of view. That would be, I have considered it. Spoo is definitely one of those who's on the long list of characters that I would love to explore, rather like the Delightfully Deadly girls. So I definitely wouldn't rule writing her out. She's going to be so much fun. Oh, there's Shannon. Oh my goodness. My friend Shannon, everybody. We went, my roommate from college, university. Yes, the Worldcon is going to be fun this year, I think. And I think the talk with Shelley will be fun. I'm sorry you guys are going to miss it. Rebecca is saying Competence is beautiful, and I hope you sell. Thank you. I hope it sells well, too. It's definitely one of those situations where the proof is in the pudding, so we'll see. Katie said she's plugging my books on all of the kids. Yes! Let's ruin the next generation. Sally says she's going to write a review. Hooray. Louise says thank you for the fabulous queer characters. My honor and privilege. Wouldn't be my books without them. Ty wants to know if publishing for the deadline means Reticence is pushed back. This is an excellent question. In other words, Ty is asking if the fact that I am late on Reticence, which I am very late, means that the release date for Reticence next year is going to be also later. And the answer is most likely. So the Custard Protocol books usually come out in July, and it is likely that Reticence will be pushed back to August or even September. So they will try to keep it as tight into July as possible. And honestly, it will all ride on what the lineup is like for the publishers, for the publishing house, like how many other books they have and how rigid that schedule is, how fast we can get the copy edits and everything turned around, and how much editing the draft that I hand in needs. So how clean is my draft? So they can, I know from previous experience, that they can push me to publication in 6 months if they're really motivated. So it is possible that it will not be delayed at all. I have asked this question of my publisher because I've basically said, look, this is the new date that I'm now going to be handing in Reticence to you. What does that mean for next year for production? When will the book come out? And they haven't given me an answer yet. So, could be a couple months later than normal, but it won't be like a year wait. It won't be. It'll definitely be next year sometime. Mandy says that her daughter is wearing out. I thought she was literally wearing copies of my book. I was like as a hat? That seems like an interesting book choice. She wants to know if they'll get reissued at any point. I think you mean the mass market paperback editions, perhaps, of the first series. So, Solace and the Parasol Protectorate books and the Finishing School books are all available in trade paperback size, which is this size here. So they're all available in that size. There are no plans to reissue the hardback versions of the Finishing School books, and there are no plans to ever do any of my books in mass market paperback unless that becomes an option for me as an independent book publisher, which there isn't because I happen to really love mass market. I like that size a lot. So if you have the mass market size, the small pocketbook size version of the Parasol Protectorate, or if you have the hardcover size of the Finishing School series, congratulations, you have first editions. They are out of print. In other words, there are no plans to reprint them. Lucky you. However, both those series are still in print in that you can get the digital editions and you can get the trade paperback size editions. But that's the size that's now available to you, which is for my European and Australian fans. It is the size that is generally available to you guys anyway, and always has been. Your size is that trade paperback or B4 format. Well, there's Shelley. Speaking of Shelley, we were just talking about you. Katie wants to know, the niece is 7. How soon can I start her on the finishing school book? 11, 12. I think it says on the books 10 to 14. The youngest reader I know of to read the finishing school series was, in fact, 8. It's a bit young. But honestly, this is the answer I'm going to give to everyone who has kids who want to read my book, which is you and presumably your brother or sister knows your kid way better than I do, and you know the books because you've read them. So, like, how much of a tolerance do they have for excitement and violence and those sorts of things? And you should make that judgment call. I can't really make it for you. Yeah, very young readers have read the finishing school books, but they were pretty advanced readers, like they read a little above their grade level and tended to be pretty kind of self-aware, mature, only children type kids. Those are the ones who've read it young. But I think the book itself says 10 to 14. I think that's what it says, or 9 to 14, something like that. Shay, believe it is pronounced Shay. I apologize if that's not right. Would like to know, since the series is wrapping up, where am I going next? And it's sad that there aren't as many Parasol books. So I am not entirely ruling out more Custard Protocol. I mean, I'm not leaving the series open-ended by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, that they're still in their dirigible. I mean, everything ends happily. It's me. Everything always ends happily. But that doesn't mean that they're like, they all have houses in London or something like that. Like, so it is possible that the Custard Protocol itself, like if I decide to write Spoo, for example, I could just write Spoo on board. You know, so there's it's definitely open for me to write within in the future, especially the novellas. So going forward in terms of what my future plans are as an author, it's a little up in the air at the moment. I'll continue writing the novellas for you. So I have 3, she says holding up 4. I have 3. 3 novella lines in play that all take place in the Parasolverse with beloved characters, side characters, and main characters as side characters. So you'll definitely get more in the sandbox. So I have more Delightfully Deadly books planned. Those are the spin-offs. So you're going to see Dimity and Agatha both get their own Delightfully Deadly books eventually, I hope. Probably Dimity is next. And then you're definitely going to get more in the Claw and Courtship books. So those all take place in the London Pack, or a tangential to it. And they are all romances with a werewolf and a woman who loves him. So those are happening. And then there will probably also be a few more Supernatural Society books. Those are the queer, like specifically queer character books. So you're getting more of those in the novellas, so I'm not abandoning the universe, and I'm not, so you guys, it's there, it's happening. There's 2 more in the San Andreas series, and then there's the Tinkered Star series as well. So I definitely have stuff happening. In terms of where I'm going for longer, like novels and bigger books, I'm in negotiations right now for a new young adult series, so we'll see. And my tentative plans are, if a traditional publisher doesn't pick that up, I might just go ahead and write them anyway and produce those ones myself. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But that's my most immediate plan, is to do, and it's a trilogy, so it would be three books in a new fantasy, kind of a more high fantasy world YA series. So, but it's still me, so it's still full of queer characters, full of humor, full of fun, full of silliness, full of animals. I always have to have tons of animals in my books. Maybe a little bit less tea than in YA. Cindy says that she enjoyed my 10 embarrassing things post. For those of you who don't know, I did like 10 things I'm really embarrassed to admit to, and I just decided to admit to them publicly on my blog. But now she wonders why I have my makeup on. So one of the things I admitted is that I don't do as many lives and video things as I would like, because I will only do them if I have full makeup on. It takes me an hour to put on the makeup and I hate doing it. So usually when I'm doing a live, it's because I already had the makeup on for some other reason. And so Cindy wants to know what my other reason is. My other reason is I went to my RWA chapter meeting this morning. So I belong to the Romance Writers of America, which is a little bit like a kind of guild consortium of authors. And I have a local chapter that's actually really active. Not all of them are. And they're awesome ladies, and they're really, and a couple of gentlemen, and they're really fun to hang out with. And we have a monthly chapter meeting. And I don't always go, but I went this month. Mostly just to hang out and say hi and see the program. There's always a speaker or something. And for that, I put on makeup for it. Get up early in the morning, put on the makeup, drive. And so that's why I often have these lives on Saturdays. It turns out Saturdays is actually pretty good for getting as many of you as possible. I know it's really inconvenient for some people, but purely from a statistical standpoint, like most of you seem to be on Facebook on Saturdays. Hi, guys. So Saturday is actually a really good day for me to do a live, and I'm already ready to do one because I went to a meeting this morning. And thank you. Thank you very much. This is fun. Hi, Jenny. Another Australian is signing in. Lots of people saying that they love Competence. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for like buying it early and getting it from the library early and requesting it right away. That also really helps get a book out there and launch a book into the world. Shannon wants to know if I miss a particular character when I'm not actively writing them. That's a good question. I think there are definitely characters that are tapping into a part of my psyche, and that character will appear because I miss talking to that other self or being in touch with that more frivolous side of me. It's often Lord Akaldama. So like I don't plan to put him into a scene, and then he shows up in a scene and I'm like, oh, did I need you? Apparently I needed you. But yes, I think there are a few characters I miss kind of quietly and emotionally as first person, or as like Flute is a character I miss. I miss writing him in the form that he had in the Parasol Protectorate series. And there's definitely an archetype of a character I miss that Flute represents, which is this sort of quietly capable, calm character. I love the quietly capable, feels very deeply, doesn't say very much kind of character. I love that. And conversely, I love like an incredibly outrageous, frivolous, snarky character. And so if I don't have access to, say, Lord Akaldama, for example, because, you know, he's not in this series, so I'll write like a comparable kind of snarky character, snarky know-it-all, who really does know it all, for that series. So I wrote Mana, for those of you who... Mana is kind of has the role in a strange way of the Lord Akaldama character. But Mana is very different, but she is still like super snarky and knowledgeable and very, very smart. So I guess that's more how I handle it. And they represent parts of me that I'm maybe craving or don't have access to. Sarah wants to know if there'll be more books after Reticence, and I think I just answered that, which is there's definitely going to be more novella-length things, and there may also be full books set in the Parasolverse. I won't be under contract at that juncture, so if I will definitely be taking a break on novel-length stuff in the Parasolverse, so full-on series is set in the Parasolverse. I'll be taking a break from them for a while. Probably is maybe 2 or 3 years, if not more. So, but there's a lot for you guys to read. Like, there are a lot of them. And there will be more book-length stuff from me. It just won't necessarily be in the Parasolverse. And there will be a lot more short stuff set in the Parasolverse. So there will be more for you to read in this universe. Book wants to know if there will be novellas connected to the Custard Protocol series. Definitely a possibility. There seem to be novellas. Novellas seem to be connected to all of my books in some way or another, so probably, yes. Julie asked what's next, so I think I covered that. Physically actually releasing after the Competence, so my upcoming release schedule is the signed illustrated edition of Soulless, so the special edition, and then after that is the second, I don't have a cover yet, but the second of the San Andreas Shifter books comes out in November. It's called the Omega Objection, so that one comes out then. Then in the spring of 2019 is this ridiculous, silly, crazy, adorable sci-fi that I have coming out with a lavender-colored alien with tentacle hair. And it is me poking a lot of fun at the sci-fi genre, which means I'm having a grand old time. And then probably it is Reticence. And then it should be another Parasol verse novella in the fall of next year. And then I also have a super secret project, which I can't announce yet because I haven't signed, the ink has not dried on the contract. And that is coming out in celebration because Soulless turns 10 next year, you guys. 10! 10 years since Soulless came out. And so I'm releasing a very special collector's limited edition book with Subterranean that is tying to that anniversary, which I think you guys will be pretty excited about. And I will give you a big old hint, and the big old hint is it will contain a story that is novelette length, so it's a longish short story-ish, that is the most requested story from me that you guys have asked me for. So you can probably guess what that may be, and that is going to be the anniversary edition. So that's next year. So that's what I have coming up. So still quite a bit for you. We'll see if I can make all of those things happen. I think I can. And meanwhile, next year I'll be writing a bunch of other, like I'll be writing more Parasolver stuff. I do have a bunch of writing retreats scheduled for next year. So, and writing retreats are great for me. I usually get a lot of work done on those. So I will hopefully, also have more stuff coming for you. And if I'm lucky, I'll have this new, young adult contract. So I'll be working on those books as well. Yay! Lots of stuff. Don't you worry. Oh, another one from the Netherlands. Asking a question that might be a repeat. Well, I'll give it a try. In what format do I create my drafts? Is it all typed or do I handwrite? And if I typed, what kind of tools do I use to type it on? So, and relatedly, does the method of writing help you with immersion during my creative process? Ooh, this is a real craft question. So, I'll answer it. I am a typer. I do not think handwrite. I struggle to handwrite now. I will take notes handwritten, like in the middle of the night or in the middle of a shower when I think of something, but that's the only time I handwrite. I actually think via a keyboard. I wrote on a Brother electric typewriter starting at about age 9, and I had an Apple LC2 computer, and I've never looked back. And I won't tell you how old I was when I got that, but I really work best typing. These days, occasionally I will dictate. So if there's a long paragraph that is mostly descriptive, I will occasionally dictate that if it's just, but I think better typing as well as a creative. I used to use Word and now I use Scrivener. I love Scrivener. I highly recommend it, especially for people like me. I tend to write mostly linearly, but not always. I do jump ahead and write scenes. So like I'll write the last scene often because it will suddenly pop into my head vividly. I also think in kind of chunks and chapters. I think of my pacing, the heartbeat of my book, and the way I write almost mathematically. And so Scrivener is really good for me. I'm also very visual, and Scrivener allows you to have like images. So I'll have the image of the dress that the main character is wearing in a scene. And Scrivener lets me do that in a way that Word and other processing programs never did. So I really love it. I'm also an outliner, and Scrivener is very good for those of us who are outliners. So it is my tool of choice, and I really, really love it. I also use it on the go. I have the iOS version, and I have a setup where I use my iPad and a little wireless Bluetooth keyboard when I'm like on planes and stuff like that. Yeah, so I find longhand is not effective at all for me. Now, I have a very good friend, Kristen Kishore, who writes young adult fantasy novels, and she writes all her books out in longhand. The idea, like, just gives me hives. I couldn't imagine doing something like that. So yeah, I am not one of those authors who's into like the right kind of paper and the right kind of pen and fountain pens and stationery. It's all the tools of the computer. And in addition to having, I have a laptop. I work off of a laptop. I have a like a big monitor when I'm in the office. And a remote keyboard to kind of make everything ergonomic. I stand. I'm a standing writer generally. Yeah, and I actually I'm a social writer in terms of I work really well in cafes with ambient noise around me. I work really well with other writers. I'm always trying to just like come up with people to sit across from me at cafe and type together. I don't want to talk to them. I just want to write with them. I think it's because I'm competitive. Which is one of the reasons that I found writing retreats work really well for me. So yeah, that's the process. Susan says she loves my books, and that they have a convention August 24th through 26th in Albuquerque. So that sounds like it is the long weekend at the end of the summer, which is always such a pain in the ass. And my answer is going to be what it always is, which is if you would like me to be at your convention, then you have to persuade the convention to bring me in as a guest of honor at this point, which means that they're going to cover my flight and my hotel and my attendance at the con at the least. Otherwise, I'm just not going to go. I'm sorry. I will go to stuff that's local to me on my own dime, and I will go to writing retreats on my own dime, but that's it now. I just can't afford to do other conventions. Deborah wants to know if Rue has another sibling. Well, that's a very good question, isn't it? Ty, you can ask the question again if you like. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through questions at the moment, looking for anybody else. More Easter eggs. My stuff is nothing but Easter eggs at this juncture, you guys. Susan wants to know if we ever read any more about Alexia and Lord Makar, to which I say they show up in Romancing the Inventor, right? Yes, they show up in Romancing the Inventor. Yeah. They may or may not show up again. They show up as side characters quite a bit, actually. If you mean as main POV characters, it's really unusual for me to, not unheard of, but very unusual for me to revisit main characters. And part of that is contract. It's not that I'm not allowed to write Alexia as a main character again. It's just that it is politically difficult to do so. It's not that my publishing house, like, owns her. It's just that, like, you know, she kind of was made a big deal because of what they did with those books, and therefore it's a little politically impolitic of me to, like, just write another book with her as a main character. On a more emotional level, like, I'm done. Like, we're done. I interfered in her life long enough. I told her a story. We're good. As far as I'm concerned, you got 5 books. I am not a beat that dead horse, beat it author. Like, I don't like though certain, shall we say, urban fantasy authors who will write 14, 18 books with one main character. Like, that, I cannot imagine doing that. It's just not my style. I like a tidy, as a reader, I really love standalone novels. And so when I write series, I try to write tight series as well that all go together, end nicely. You know, the Parasol verse books, there are 5 books. They're all fit neatly together. The same, the Finishing School of the 4, Custard Protocol are going to be 4. You know, I try and tie up all the loose ends, make everything neat and pretty, because that's what I like to read. So, sorry, that's what I write. But it does mean that I don't revisit main characters very often. I feel like they got their say, they can show up as side characters, but we're good. We're good. So that answers that question. Competence is a beautiful cover. Thank you. I'm pretty happy with it. We're running out of time, you guys, so I'm going to ask you to stop asking questions. Don't worry, I'll do lives again. And you know, you can always ask me questions whenever you feel like it. Or you can always go over to the Parasol Protector group and ask them all of the questions. Michael's excited that they come out in the summer. Yeah, my books don't seem to be, there are interesting trends in terms of when a book is released throughout the year, how well it does. Mine don't seem to be impacted too much about when they're released. Although it is unlikely I will ever release a book during December. That is a notoriously bad month for books. So not many of us release December releases. Michael wants to know what the idea for the finishing, I'm assuming where the idea for the finishing school books came from. I've always loved the idea of finishing schools. There's something that say Gaskell and Austen and everybody kind of touch on liminally, that like women are mysteriously sent away to Switzerland and then they come back all civilized and cultivated and knowing how to speak. And I thought that was always, I was like, but there are no books written from the finishing school. They're like boarding school in England, all girls boarding school books. And, you know, there's like the beginning of the Becky Sharp Vanity Fair. You know, you get little touches of what finishing schools were maybe kind of like, but no series ever set in them. And I just thought, how fun would it be if you had girls going to finishing school, but they're really being trained to be all subversive and spies. They're actually taking this like rather revolting idea, which was that women were supposed to go somewhere in order to become perfect for marriage to men. And I just loved the idea of taking that and twisting it brutally and making them all like assassins and stuff. This just seemed really fun to me. So that's why I wrote it. I love a boarding school book anyway, always have. Robert wants to know if there'll be a time when I cut back on the number of books. I did cut back a little while ago, but right now I'm feeling really comfortable with it. So usually at about this time of year, I'm starting to feel a little burnt out about like how many projects I have and, you know, that kind of thing. But I really found that the combination I've currently come up with, which is writing retreats combined with only one book due from my traditional publisher, combined with learning how to say no and learning how to say, you're going to have to wait for that, it's going to take more time, which was a big lesson for me because I am a bit of a pleaser and I do want to make my deadlines and I want to make everyone happy, and I had to learn that like that's not always healthy for me. Ironically, that freed me up creatively to be a lot more excited and to write a lot more. So right now this is working really well, and by this I mean it's like one novella and either another novel or another novella and a traditional book. So it's about 3 a year. And I think that's probably good for me. I think I can probably keep that up. There may come a time where I will just freak out or something will go horribly wrong with a publication schedule and, you know, it may just be too. But this feels fun and good and comfortable. So I don't feel burnt out at all. There was definitely a time maybe 3 years ago where I was feeling pretty burnt out and pretty exhausted by my schedule. And strangely enough, I seem to be writing more, but like not feeling as drawn as I used to. So we're good. We're doing well, but thank you for asking. Ty wants to know about my motorcycle creature gang. Ty, there is a character who's kind of written for you, maybe a little bit, in the next San Andreas Shifter book. So if you want your gang, yeah. Looking through the last of the questions. Lindsay says she also loves the mass market size. I think I'm well behind you guys so far as the comments are concerned. Thank you for repeating the questions. That is very, very helpful. I hope I've gotten most everybody's dealt with at this juncture. Julie says that everything ends happily, but that I scare her horribly first. And so that is my responsibility as a writer, is to terrify you as much as possible, possibly make you cry, but then leave you with a big old smile on your face. I consider that my personal responsibility. I take this duty very seriously. But yes, don't you worry. Everything will come out good in the end. It's like my contractual promise to you guys. Do 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 do. More tea, more tea. So Sally's really excited about Card Rat. That's very sweet. Everybody's loving Tasherit and Competence. This is an interesting question I haven't had. Lindsay wants to know why I chose werewolves rather than vampires as the romantic interest, since vampires are so common. I don't know. I've always found vampires a little creepy. Well, for some reason, I don't find werewolves creepy. Just like, I've always wanted to be a shapeshifter. I always thought that would be the funnest thing to be. Immortally beautiful, whatever. Shapeshifting into like some other creature, that's so exciting. I also really like the idea of exploring the kind of beast, ego, id conflict that the werewolf represents. So I think that's part of it as well. Like the beast. I like a civilized beast. So I like a man who's like grumpy and growly, but you know, is actually a big old softy sweetheart. And I feel like a werewolf is a way better access to that kind of hero character than a vampire. Vampires always seem slightly sleazy and urbane to me. So that's why I tend to not write them as romantic love interests. Well, I'm hoping we ought to be ending soon. I'm like scanning through it to make sure. What are Sid Hagen Rue writing about at the beginning? Ty, you're gonna have to ask that question in another location, and I'll talk to you about it later. Because I not entirely. You have to realize that I haven't reread Competence in like 2 years. Lots of people have books for me to sign. Hopefully, I'll be in your area soon. Michael wants to know if I would do a steampunk murder mystery novel. I actually was just talking with some friends about the fact that I have a couple of mystery novels that I'd really like to write, but I'm just not sure I would be any good at it. And I really only like to do things that I think I'll be good at. But maybe I will some point. Yes, 10 years for Solace. Any new news on the film? No new news on the film. If Agent is shopping it, who knows? Seems unlikely at this juncture, but ooh, that does remind me, and I think this is a good way to end, so I'm going to end on this, which is one of the things that I got to do while I was signing the Tipton is binge watch some television, which I normally don't do a lot of, and I have to like secretly confess to the fact that I binge watched all of Teen Wolf, the new TV show, and I really kind of loved it. I am ashamed, but I did. Like, it's so cheesy and bad, and like characters go missing, and the love interests are strange. But there's lots of adorable gay boys, and it's kind of like Buffy. It gave me the same feels that Buffy gave me way back in the day. So, yeah, I'm gonna call out a little love for Teen Wolf because I know, but it's super silly fluff, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. We had a lot this time around, but there will be another live soon, I promise. And as always, you can ask me questions anytime, not live, and I will try and go back and make sure I answer everyone's question later. So I love you very much. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.